You didn't realize it at the time, but you were walking into something that was designed to pull you in. And at first, it felt like connection, like you'd been truly seen for the first time in your life. And it was intense, but you told yourself that was a good thing. And before you could name what was happening, you were already in pretty deep. That's why I'm not going to walk you through the usual stages of narcissistic abuse in this video. Instead, I want to show you what it feels like through a metaphor that might help things finally click into place. Because when you're in it, it doesn't feel clinical. It feels disorienting and addictive, like something you can't quite step away from. And for a lot of people, it feels a lot like being trapped in a casino. So let's talk about what happens stage by stage when love turns into a game you never agreed to play. And if you're feeling stuck in a cycle like this, I have a free quiz that can help. It's quick and it'll show you exactly what's going on beneath the surface, whether it's a trauma bond, confusion, or something else entirely. You'll find the link for that below. My name is Christina, and I help people break the trauma bond, rebuild trust in themselves, and finally move on from toxic relationships. So let's talk about the first stage, the one that pulls you in before you even know there's a game. And I'm going to call this the slot machine stage. And at first, it's all lights and bells. You're pulling the lever and sometimes you win. Maybe they send the perfect text or they say just the right thing. Maybe they show up with a grand gesture right when you're about to give up. It feels like maybe you were wrong to doubt them. Maybe this really is the one hand that changes everything. And that's a lot of maybes, isn't it? This stage is set during love bombing. But it's not just the flattery and attention that people expect. It's the emotional rush, the high-stakes pull that lights up your nervous system. So maybe those wins are consistent at first, but it's not long before they're as unpredictable as a real slot machine. And that's exactly what keeps you pulling the lever. Even the early signs of devaluation feel confusing here, because they're not full-blown insults or silent treatments just yet. They're more kind of like glitches, like a strange reaction or a cold vibe. Maybe a forgotten promise they swore up and down that they'd keep, but it's easy to explain away when the next pull gives you another win. So maybe that looks like a compliment or a moment of connection. Maybe it's even an apology that almost sounds sincere. And if you've ever been to a casino, the design of this relationship might feel familiar. There are no clocks, no windows, just noise, flashing lights, and urgency. And all of this is not actually there to entertain you. It's there to wear you down. And in a toxic relationship, it's the same. You don't really get time to settle. Just when things start to feel off, the person comes back with reassurance. And then, quickly, it's back to chaos, and then back to charm. And the cycle, it starts to make its own kind of logic. And to make sense of it, you start making little mental adjustments. So maybe they're just stressed, or maybe you overreacted. Maybe it's not perfect, but you know what? What is? And just like that, we explain away all of the red flags and all of the off feelings that we're having. But if you're caught in it, that doesn't make you weak. We often feel like it does. It only means that the game is doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's the part they didn't count on. You weren't chasing. You were noticing. And you started feeling that twist in your stomach after the high wore off. You began to question why even the good moments left you feeling uneasy. And even if you weren't ready to walk away yet, once you started making those connections, things were different. And once you start seeing the pattern, you can't unsee it. But the game doesn't stop there. In fact, that's when it gets even trickier. And that brings us to what I'm going to call the card table stage. So eventually, the slot machine loses its shine. The wins feel smaller and the crashes hit harder. You start bracing yourself even during the good moments because you know the other shoe is going to drop. So when the narcissist switches strategies, they don't just hand out crumbs anymore. They start setting traps. And this is where things get really confusing. Because now it's not about chasing the next high, it's about trying to keep the peace. And this is where the card table comes in. So now you're sitting across from them and it's not about luck anymore. It's about rules. Only the rules keep changing. So what was fine last week is suddenly a problem. And what hurt your feelings yesterday is now your fault for being too sensitive. And the things they swore up and down they would never do, now they're telling you they never actually said that in the first place. So you try to keep up. So you tweak your tone and you rethink your words before you say them. Maybe you memorize every reaction, trying to get ahead of whatever the next problem might be. Because the only thing you know for sure is that there will be a next problem. And at this point, you're not even trying to win. You're just trying not to lose. And that part's important because this is where so many survivors get stuck. You're showing up with the best intentions. You're trying to be fair, to be kind, to meet in the middle. But no matter how carefully you play your hand, the outcome is always the same. They come out on top. And you're left wondering if maybe you really are the one who's hard to love. In this stage, it doesn't just wear you out, it starts to chip away at who you think you are. Because the more you try to make sense of it, the more impossible it becomes. And this is because you're holding two versions of reality at once. The one where something feels deeply wrong, and the one where you're still hoping with all of your might, with everything you have in you, that it might actually be right. And that's what cognitive dissonance feels like. It's a slow internal unraveling. Part of you knows something's off, and part of you still wants to believe it's fixable. So you stay in it, thinking if you can just figure out the rules, you can finally make it work. But even here, even in the middle of that tug of war, something's starting to shift because you're not playing with blind trust anymore. You're noticing when the rules only change when they're losing. You're noticing that the hope that things are somehow going to swing in your favor, that hope is diminishing. And you're starting to see the game. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And by this point, you're absolutely not focused on fixing things. You're focused on avoiding blowups. So you second guess your tone. You replay your conversations in your head. You keep things surface level to avoid giving them anything they can use against you. And even when things seem calm, there's tension under the surface. And because of that, you're never settling in. You're always scanning. Because you've learned that the explosions don't always come from something big. Sometimes it's just the look on your face or a pause that maybe lasted too long. And this becomes the new version of the game. It's not about connection anymore, not for you. It's about survival. So you stop asking for what you need and start doing the only thing you can control, which is convincing yourself that what you needed wasn't important to begin with. You talk yourself out of speaking up because you already know how it's going to go. It's kind of like that scene in the movie where someone's been at the casino way too long. And you can see it becomes very obvious that the lights are way too bright at this point. The air feels heavy. And it's clear that they can't even remember what made the game exciting in the first place. It is all doom and gloom at this point. But they've already spent so much time and energy trying to win something back. So they tell themselves, just one more round, just one more try. What if this hand is the hand that changes everything? And if you're relating to this, what you might not realize is that Something has already changed. You're not shrinking because you still believe them. At this point, if you're still shrinking, it's because it feels safer than standing up for yourself. And even if you haven't walked away fully, you've started pulling back in small ways. So you're not reacting as much. You're not as eager to explain your point of view. And you've probably started noticing just how heavy it all feels in this relationship. And that kind of noticing really matters because when something starts to feel off in your body, even before your mind can make sense of it, that's the part of you that knows this isn't love. So if you're starting to feel that now, I'm going to link to a video below that you need to watch next. But before you go, let's talk about how you changed the game. In this part, it doesn't always look dramatic. There's no loud exit, no final mic drop. Sometimes changing the game starts with silence. And silence can be incredibly powerful, especially if you're dealing with a narcissist. Even if the rumination is still loud, and it usually is, or even if you're still analyzing every word after the fact, something feels different. You're not trying to fix the dynamic anymore. You're trying to understand why you've been the only one doing the work. And this is where you naturally start pulling back more. That text you used to answer right away, maybe now it sits a little longer. Maybe you don't even respond at all. And those conversations that once felt meaningful, now they leave you tired. And you're not even sure why you ever felt safe in them at all. And the narcissist usually does pick up on that change. So they might push harder. They might love bomb you again or play the victim to pull you back in. And if you're at this stage, I'll link to another video below that explains what happens when a narcissist feels like they're losing you and how to see through it before it's too late. Because when you stop playing the role they need you to play, their whole strategy falls apart. And for someone who needs control, that is earth-shattering. But this time around, regardless of what they want, you're not so easy to hook. You might still feel a little unsure, and you might still miss that version of them they showed you in the beginning. But you're not falling for it in the same way. And it's not about winning. It's about realizing the game was rigged all along. And once you see that, once you really see that, you can stop playing altogether. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying it's possible. So let's talk about what that might look like. Let's talk about the new game. So I haven't spent much time in casinos myself, but I imagine if you've been in one long enough, stepping outside would feel disorienting. Everything is going to be quieter and slower. And the sunlight is going to feel like too much. And even if you've only been in there for 5 minutes, when you step out, you realize how truly loud it was in there and how much you were tuning it out without even knowing it. And if you've been in there long enough, the quiet might not feel peaceful at first. It might feel a little empty, a little lonely. And that loneliness can feel worse than the chaos you just left, because that chaos was familiar. And when loneliness hurts more than dysfunction, that's when part of you wants to run back in. Not because you want the pain, of course, but because at least you knew how to survive it. So it takes more than walking away to feel free. Your body's been in fight or flight for so long, it doesn't recognize stillness as safety. Not yet. And healing won't always feel like progress, although it always is. But every time you choose not to go back, every time you stay in the quiet just a little bit longer, you're retraining your nervous system to feel safe again. And eventually that stillness won't feel so sharp. You'll settle into a rhythm that doesn't run on adrenaline or anxiety. Because outside of the casino, there is no dealer keeping score. And when that finally starts to feel safe again, you didn't just stop playing their game. You started creating your own. And it might not feel easy yet, but trust me, peace gets stronger the longer you stay in it. And if part of you still feels tempted to go back or even to just give them the benefit of the doubt, there's a reason for that. Narcissists know how to play on your hope, your empathy, and your belief in seeing the good in people. So if you want to protect yourself from getting pulled back in, I'm going to link to one more video that you really need to watch next, where I'll walk you through the exact tactics they use when they feel you slipping away. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button before you go, and I'll see you again soon.